Good evening, everybody. It has been barely 3 days since voters elected America's 45th president, but President-elect Donald Trump is on the move. He's working hard at selecting his transition team, selecting who will join him in government, in the White House, in his cabinet, throughout his administration. The president-elect this morning tweeted about the decisions he'll be making, saying this, quote, "Busy day planned in New York. Will soon be making some very important decisions on the people who will be running our government." But the president-elect is creating a structure and organization around him that will allow him to organize the leaders he wants to join him in the departments, the agencies, and roles that he believes is best suited to his preferences, to the talents and skills of those he will choose to carry out his policies and programs and serve the interests of the country most efficiently and, importantly, successfully. Today, President-elect Trump announced he's chosen Vice President-elect Mike Pence to take over the job of leading Trump's presidential transition team. Governor Pence taking the helm from New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who remains a vice chairman of the transition team. It's all part of Trump's efforts to surround himself with the best, the most successful and effective leaders that he can assemble. Former Reagan White House political director Ed Rollins has a few thoughts tonight on who should be prominent on the Trump team. We'll tell you who's on that list and a few stickers in the bedroll maybe to look out for if you're the president-elect. All of that and more coming up here tonight. Also with me, two possible picks for the Trump cabinet. Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke, former presidential candidate Steve Forbes, one of the evangelical leaders who helped propel Trump to the White House, Liberty University President Jerry Falwell Jr. A lot to talk about tonight, including the spectacle of street demonstrations and even riots in some cities, all paid for and driven by radical leftists and the street money of George Soros, sprinkled around left-wing activist nonprofits like MoveOn.org and BLM. And we'll be covering more paid protests tonight. The radical left planning to take to the streets for a third straight night, paid provocateurs and organizers with their pre-printed, easy for me to say, signs and messages in the streets again. But the protesters' outrage is as manufactured as those signs. That the protesters are being bused to locations is one telltale clue of coordination typical of nonprofits supported by the liberal left-wing billionaire George Soros. We'll have the latest for you. And President-elect Trump also now has given his first television interview since being elected president to CBS's 60 Minutes, interviewed by Leslie Stahl. And here is a brief excerpt of the president-elect, I keep having to add that elect, speaking about Obamacare. Trump also talked about his phone calls after the election with Bill and Hillary Clinton. The president-elect called both lovely and gracious in their remarks. Our top story tonight, Donald Trump releasing the names of the A-team he says will help prepare a transformative government ready to lead from day one. The vice chairs to an executive committee to assist Governor Pence include Dr. Ben Carson, Governor Chris Christie, Newt Gingrich, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, Rudy Giuliani, and Senator Jeff Sessions. Trump also tapping family members for the committee. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Kellyanne Conway has been named as the senior advisor for Trump's presidential transition team staff leadership lineup. Joining me now, Great America PAC strategist, former Reagan White House political director, a veteran of 9 presidential campaigns, Ed Rollins, the dean, we call him around here.
Thank you.
And great to have you here.
Thank you. As I said last night, the most important thing this president will do in his whole administration will be picking his personnel. And it's a very short period of time. He has about 4,000 people he gets to appoint over a period of time. But these first 150 are very, very important. The cabinet officers, who's going to be his White House staff and what have you. And the critical thing is he has to make sure they're competent, make sure they believe in what he wants to do, and basically make sure that they're loyal to him.
I have to tell you, I'm immediately excited about nearly all of the people on that executive committee, if you will. I'm thrilled that he's got a place there for Conway. I am particularly pleased that Rudy Giuliani is playing an important and senior role, as Senator Jeff Sessions, all the rest. But you know what? It excites me a bit to see his children there and to have a prominent role, because that's good for him as well as for them and for the country, in my opinion. That just feels so right. It's very Trumpian, but it is, absolutely
they're phenomenal young adults who were stars all through the campaign, and he's obviously trained them. They're going to run his companies. They give him great counsel. And the most important thing about a president is that he has people that he trusts, that he can basically bounce things off of. And obviously his young children who are in their 20s. Well, so my sense that's a good move.
I think he is carrying the momentum with him of the campaign into governance here. And I want to show you Ed Rollins. We're calling it Rollins' roll call of the folks he thinks are extraordinarily helpful in this transition, and certainly that includes Senator Jeff Sessions. It includes Rudy Giuliani, as we just said, Reince Priebus, the chairman of the RNC, Peter Thiel, a terrific venture capitalist and businessman, without question, Lou Eisenberg and Kellyanne Conway and Steve Bannon. I mean, you've picked a murderer's row there of great talent.
Well, they are great talent, and Sessions was one of the first, a very influential senator, a very smart, low-key guy, brilliant guy, first guy to stand up and support Trump, gave him great counsel all the way through, helped a lot with the immigration program. There's any job he could fulfill, former federal judge. He should have what he wants in this administration. Rudy Giuliani, I think, is critical to be the Attorney General. The most important agency in this government is going to be to clean up that Justice Department after years. Yes. And because this president is going to come under all kinds of attacks.
You know, you keep saying the most important, and I'm sure you're right, but all I can think of is I look at that government right now. There is such a bureaucratic morass beneath the faces that we've seen there for almost 8 years. Get rid of those faces, that is the top of it, and the next 3 or 4 levels. I mean, there's still a tremendous mess to clean up across nearly all of the departments of the federal government.
Well, here's what I did in the Reagan days. They asked me what kind of notice should we give all the political appointees, and I said, give them a week. When I was a Ford appointee, the Carters gave us 2 weeks, and I want to show that I'm tougher than they were. So we sent a letter, so you got 2 weeks to be out of here, 1 week to be out of here, and you get them out. Because if you keep them in, what happens is they're there, they function, they sort of
they settle
in, and they fight. And the biggest problem is you want to make sure your people don't get captured by the teams that's there.
All right. And I noticed you didn't recommend a lot of governors there. What's the deal with the governor?
In the history, of modern history, there's been 39 governors who've been cabinet officers since Eisenhower. Governors are used to being the boss. And my sense is Donald Trump's the boss. So you don't want.
I think you've got the right sense.
And I think that unless there's an extraordinary talent beyond being a governor, I just wouldn't recommend them. And traditionally they.
Can we keep the vice president?
The vice president is one of the best, and I'm very. He's now the vice president, and the advantage of him is that he's been in the Congress and he's been a governor, and he's a
good man.
He's a good man. So
all right,
great choice.
As are you, Ed Rollins. Thanks for being with us. Good to see your thinking and your ideas there. Appreciate it as always. Death threats against Donald Trump flooding Twitter timelines. The social media outlet now reporting any violent threats being made toward the president-elect are going to be given to the FBI, other law enforcement agencies. Fox Business's Adam Shapiro joins me now from the Fox Business newsroom, and he has more on this story that is developing. Good evening, Adam.
Good evening, Lou. It's disturbing because there are death threats on Twitter that you can see still if you go to the hashtag #AssassinAteTrump. And so what Twitter is doing, at least what they say they're doing, is trying to stop these kind of violent threats. I want to show you the hashtag because we did a screen grab of this when this was first breaking, and we reached out to Twitter, asked them about their policy, and they said, on Twitter, you may not make threats of violence or promote violence, including threatening or promoting terrorism. They also cited U.S. federal code, which prohibits people from threatening the president or a successor to the president. Now, we asked, does Twitter report the threats to the FBI and other law enforcement agencies like the Secret Service? At first, they sent us a statement. I want to read this to you. And it said, see our guidelines for law enforcement for specifics on how authorities can request private information about accounts. But we were asking not about the cops requesting information, but does Twitter report the accounts which are threatening violence against the president-elect? Finally, after several repeated attempts to get an answer from Twitter, they did respond, and they said, yes, we do report the accounts to the FBI and to other law enforcement. And we asked them, do you suspend those accounts? And they said, yes. But we went online. We were able to find accounts where the threats were being made, and they had not been suspended.
The hashtag assassinate Trump, is it still there?
It's still there.
You know, this is really, I have to tell you, this is enough to anger anyone, any American. But Twitter is the one who, you know, they're defining hate speech almost as anything that is not left-wing on that platform. And for them to be doing this, would you do me a favor, please? Mm-hmm. Let us know if there is any change in the course of the next hour on Twitter, because the American people need to know this. This is outrageous that they would permit this.
Absolutely. You should know, though, that within the hashtag, there are people attacking those who are calling for violence. So the hashtag is quite large.
But can I tell you, straightforwardly, hashtag assassinate anyone is an asinine and irresponsible hashtag for Twitter to preserve.
Well, their own policy says it's not allowed.
That was perhaps not easily apparent, but it was the final word, because we're out of time. I appreciate it so much.
You got it,
Adam.
buddy.
Thanks so much. We're coming right back, and Adam will have the latest for us when we do, and as he monitors that. I mean, Twitter, I love you, but get it right. Come on. We're coming right back. Much more straight ahead. Stay with us. Police, law enforcement across the country tonight are bracing for what would be a third night of protests following the election of Donald Trump as president. Last night, violence erupted in Portland and in a number of other cities as well, we should point out. But in Portland, with protesters damaging cars at a dealership, they went on a rampage through the city, shattering business windows. Police declared the demonstration a riot, citing extensive criminal and dangerous behavior. Police officers in riot gear were forced to use rubber bullets and flashbang grenades trying to clear those crowds. Police arrested 26 people. Trump reacted, tweeting this, quote, "Just had a very open and successful presidential election. Now, professional protesters incited by the media are protesting. Very unfair." And this morning, Trump, seeming more optimistic, said this, "Love the fact that the small groups of protesters last night have passion for our great country. We will all come together and be proud." My next guest says these temper tantrums from radical anarchists, as he calls them, must be quelled. And joining me tonight, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark, whose name has been floated as possible Secretary of Homeland Security in a Trump administration. Sheriff, it is great to see you. Let's deal first with these riots. I know that you have very little patience with police departments that do not maintain law and order. What is your reaction to what you've seen on display over the last couple of nights?
Well, first of all, Lou, it's a great day in America, even 2-3 days after the election of Donald Trump to be the next commander-in-chief. Donald Trump ran on a theme of law and order, and what we're seeing is pure lawlessness by anarchists. These are not protests. These people do not believe in the United States Constitution, so they don't even believe in the First Amendment. They don't believe in the rule of law. They are trying to topple, intimidate, and overthrow this lawfully constituted government.
Let me interrupt you just for a second, Sheriff, to explain to our audience that you're looking at right now at protests, demonstrations, call them what you will. The sheriff is exactly right. They are paid professional protesters and provocateurs driving this, but the effect is the same as if it were organic and authentic protest. They are, obviously obstructing traffic and being driven there by some of the nonprofits, including MoveOn.org, Black Lives Matter, and others, to create dissension and disruption. And I'm sorry, Sheriff, go ahead.
But, yeah, you're right. This has George Soros written all over it. But the passive approach to dealing with these things, which many agencies have gone to, does not work. It just simply does not work. It never has. One thing that you have to do is draw a very bright line with these anarchists and let them know if this line is crossed. And that's when the looting and the bombing and that sort of thing starts to occur. All bets are off and you use all reasonable force. I have authorized my officers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We had a demonstration last night. To use all reasonable force. I've given the okay for them to use the rubber bullets, the bean bags, the flashbangs, including and up to tear gas to disperse any unruly behavior.
And why is it that there cannot be liability, responsibility placed on the nonprofits who are behind this? And I'm talking about MoveOn.org, Black Lives Matter. Much of the money of George Soros, he has plenty of money, but he should be financially responsible for the property damage, the personal injury that is created by his support and frankly, initiatives created by his nonprofits to do this, those that he supports so completely.
Well, there are obviously some federal law violations here and some state law violations inciting riots. And I'm sure there are some other federal statutes that they could get creative with, that if they can pinpoint this back to these goon-driven organizations like MoveOn.org and Black Lives Matter, so on and so forth, that they should be held criminally liable and civilly liable as well. The problem, though, is that we have an Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, who has no will to hold these individuals responsible, and that's probably on order from the White House. Secretly, I think Mrs. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Bernie Sanders are kind of enjoying what they're seeing right now, because these are the tactics that they use. These are their people.
Well, shame
these
on
are
them.
Their supporters.
And the great news is it's a 68-day problem in terms of leadership. Your reaction to your name being put forward is one of those. The president-elect is interested in putting in Homeland Security.
Well, obviously, I'd be honored to serve in the Donald Trump administration. When the president asks you to serve, you step up and you fulfill that duty. I think it's a little early yet. I realize that my name's being floated around for any number of positions, but I think it's pure speculation at this point. Once the president gets his legs underneath him, he's got his transition team in place. They'll sit down and have discussions, and I'm sure my name will be thrown around for any number of positions. But like I said, when the president steps up and asks you to serve, you step up and you serve.
And you'll be in good company with the names that we've seen, as you put it, being thrown around. So thank you so much, Sheriff. Great to talk with you as always, Sheriff David Clark. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. The question is, should the Justice Department immediately investigate George Soros and his links to nonprofits for their role in inciting riots and demonstrations that have caused property damage and personal injury? We'd like to hear from you on this. Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. On Wall Street, another record-breaking day as investors continue to cheer the Trump presidency. This is a full-on rally. The Dow gaining 40 points today, closing at a new all-time high. The S&P down 3 points. The Nasdaq up 28. Volume on the big board, 5 billion shares on a Friday in November. The Dow posting its biggest weekly gain since 2011, up more than 5%. The S&P and Nasdaq also posting gains of nearly 4% on the week. The financial sector also rallying on some hope of less regulation under President-elect Trump, up more than 11% this week. And a reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, Donald Trump is called the mainstream liberal media among the worst people he's ever met. Well, now that Mr. Trump is president-elect, will they change their ill-mannered ways? Well, it doesn't appear like that, but we'll assess that in my commentary coming up next. Stay with us. A few thoughts now on the mainstream liberal media, which got the election so wrong, laying its bias bare for all to see, its outright complicity with the left for all to see. In fact, The mainstream liberal media got it so wrong that Newsweek, did this. Forced to recall its commemorative election issue because Newsweek, its design covers for both Trump and Clinton victory, well, it went haywire. The magazine's production partner shipped only the Clinton issue last week, believing she would win. She did not, by the way. 125,000 copies of Newsweek proclaiming Hillary Clinton Madam President. Nope. As a result, the Trump edition not expected to hit newsstands until next week. 125,000 collector's editions, though, of the magazine have been created. The mainstream media is still failing to come to grips with President-elect Trump and the fact they got it all wrong. The New York Times today defended their election coverage in a letter to their readers, a dwindling group, and it was an appeal for readership. Times publisher Arthur Sulzberger Jr. and executive editor Dean Baquet wrote this, quote, "We believe we reported on both candidates fairly during the presidential campaign. You can rely on the New York Times to bring the same fairness, the same level of scrutiny, the same independence to our coverage of the new president and his team," in quote. That should scare you to death. Most reasonable readers would find that statement more of the same to be frightening and not a reason to, well, continue their subscription. Frankly, I can't tell whether Sulzberger and Baquet are sending subtle assurances to their most ideologically committed left-wing readers, whether their words are some sort of dog whistle or left-wing media code promising Times readers they will continue their campaign of torture and gutting of the truth. The left-wing media has thoroughly embarrassed itself throughout this campaign, this election, not only biased, but, as I've said, complicit with the Democrats and the left. And while they may recover someday from their embarrassment, I doubt soon they'll recover their credibility with many readers. No matter what, I assure you, we will be watching them and their like very carefully, because I believe what they're practicing now is disinformation and propaganda. And we'll report as well, of course, when they occasionally commit journalism, because then that will truly be news. The quotation of the evening, this one from Eric Hoffer, who said, "Propaganda does not deceive people. It merely helps them to deceive themselves." We're coming right back. President-elect Trump working hard to assemble his winning team of cabinet members ready to make America great again.
Some people are obvious. I mean, these are people so integral to the campaign that they're bound to be close to Trump in a major position.
We take up Trump's important decisions with Tony Sayegh and Lee Carter. They join me here next. Joining me now, pollster, partner at Maslansky and Partners, Lee Carter, Republican campaign strategist, Fox News contributor, Tony Sayegh. Thank you both for being here.
Great to be here.
And Lee, we're watching right now these protests and marches. The president has said nothing. The Clinton folks have said nothing. The vice president has said nothing. And a number of media outlets are saying, well, Trump should address them. When in fact, we know for a fact that George Soros is behind some of these demonstrations, some of these protesters, with his money, with his organizations, his nonprofits.
You know, there's a few things here. I think, number one, the right to protest is a right, and people should be able to do it if they want to.
By the way, let me be clear, just so we don't have to go through this bromide. I don't have any problem with anybody demonstrating, protesting. I do have a problem with cities having to pay massive bills for security. Secondly, property damage and personal injury.
Right.
Those things, I have a problem.
I have a problem with that, too. And the irony of all of this is that everybody said if Trump were going to lose, that it's his supporters that were going to be on the streets causing chaos. And it seems to be quite the opposite. So one of the things that I think we need to have happen right now is that we need to understand that people are upset and we need to come together. But I
don't
think
believe that. By the way, I don't believe that.
You don't?
I just got to say to you, Lee, I don't believe it. They're being paid to get into the street.
It's artificial.
I mean, this is AstroTurf.
Mm-hmm. This is exactly what the Democrats claimed a legitimate grassroots uprising, the Tea Party movement, was. They claimed it was AstroTurf.
Why I use AstroTurf.
Exactly right.
Salute to Nancy Pelosi. I don't get many of them, but that was one.
Well, she needs salute. She's not happy these days, so thank you for that. But the reality is, none of this would be happening without a coordinated, financed basically operation coming from George Soros and the like. Because the reality is we always have people who are upset after a political outcome because your guy didn't win or your side didn't win. But you don't have this. You don't have civil unrest.
So where is Obama? Where is Biden? And why aren't they speaking to this? Why doesn't George Soros say, hey, you know what? He's had enough fun.
I don't
pull
know.
his money, pull his instructions, and get him off the street.
And I don't know where the president is or the vice president is, and they should be out in front of this because they said so many times that Donald Trump should condemn so many things that were said. They should be out there saying enough is enough. They should be settling things down. They did a beautiful, he did a beautiful speech. I mean, Hillary did a wonderful concession speech, but now it's time to actually put that into practice and put it into action and say the healing must begin. We have to give President-elect Donald Trump a chance, and it is up to them.
Let's move to
lead.
Hope for the best. We've got 68 days of what appears to be more nonsense, and then we can look to real leadership. The idea that the cabinet now is moving apparently at a very sharp rate of speed. Trump has put his children on the transition executive committee. You got to love that. I mean, it's terrific, I think. It
is terrific. And I think they are a big reason why so many people looked at Donald Trump when they weren't sure that they could give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think the fact that he has such amazing children was large part why he was able to get as far as he was. So I think people love Ivanka. They love Eric. They love Donald Jr. And they want to see this
I can
continue.
hear Donald Trump right now. Hey, those are my kids.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Lou, good leaders groom good leaders. In his case, it happens to be his children. I'm actually quite impressed with what he's put together, even from the people who you've heard from past government service, guys like Rudy Giuliani and Newt Gingrich. You know what I see a lot on this list, Lou? A lot of doers. A lot of people who've accomplished something. Not just theoretical people, academics.
They didn't just write a paper.
Wrote some great policy paper one day that was published. These are people who've accomplished things in both the public and private sector. The other thing I'm really excited about is this is the first president of the United States who's come to the table with real business management experience in a very long time.
I also think that we've got, when you look at Rudy Giuliani and Newt Gingrich, you can, a lot of people criticize them, but I will say this, they're both unifiers. What Newt Gingrich did back with a contract for America.
Who are you going to criticize?
Well, plenty of people have criticized
You got to let go of that campaign stuff. It's over.
I'm saying that plenty of people have, and what I would like to point out is that they are, in fact, experienced in unifying. And you've never seen New York so unified behind Rudy Giuliani. You've never seen the party like with what Newt Gingrich did, and I think that is something that is a great, great skill that they have behind them. You know,
I have to tell you, Rudy Giuliani is a special talent, a special guy, and I'm delighted he's in the role he is. Agreed. Thank you both, as always. Always delighted to have you both here.
Great to be here.
Thank you so much. Tony, Lee. United Auto Workers Union president saying he agrees with Trump on NAFTA. We have Canada, Trudeau saying he will be glad to open it up with Trump. We have the president of Mexico saying upon further consideration, we're willing to talk about it. Suddenly, precisely what everybody said was a terrible idea on the left in this country are witnessing the heads of state, heads of unions saying it's time to do precisely what Trump has called for from the outset.
Well, and it's going to proceed. And one thing Trump should consider doing with the Chinese to, you might say, soften them up for negotiations is send the Navy to those. Seriously.
Wait a minute.
No.
This sounds more like war than a negotiation.
No. You send the Navy inside the alleged waters of those.
South China Sea.
South China Sea.
Right.
To make it very clear that we're not going to be passive anymore. You do that, then they're going to be in a frame of mind, okay, this is serious. We got to sit down, stabilize currencies, no more revaluations, devaluations, and that kind of thing.
It's sort of a form. What would you call that? A benign gunboat run-it diplomacy?
No, it does two things. It establishes a new foreign policy. We're not passive anymore.
There you go.
Also shows we're serious about negotiating.
Yeah, well, it's...
And the exciting thing, too, negotiations take time. But the exciting thing is you could get early next year a real tax cut bill. Hugely important. And then it'll be a model for Europe and for Asia.
To do some of that, you're going to have to send a gunboat up the Potomac toward the Democrats.
Already happened. was called Tuesday, the election. That blasted him away.
You're in a bellicose, wonderful kind of mood tonight. That is true.
We need things done.
Well, one of the things that we need done, I think, is a president who is moving at the rate of speed that Donald Trump is. I mean, aren't you impressed with the speed and the quality of people he is bringing together for both his transition team and ostensibly for his cabinet?
Well, this transition team that you saw reformulated today, that's more like a shadow government of what we're going to see actually in the White House. So that's an effective second stage of you have during the campaign, you have a transition team working. After the election, you start to bring in the people who are going to be real players in your government. But another thing that Trump did today, that he did well today, even though I didn't like it initially when Obama did it, the 23 to 26-year-old provision in Obamacare where you can keep your kids on until 26, keeping that on takes away a battering ram that the Democrats are going to use against them, that you're going to leave people on the streets, you're going to take it away from the kids. So that was smart. That way you can get the big thing done, repeal the monstrosity, but not suffer political flack.
George Bernard Shaw, and you can change nothing if you cannot change your own mind, is in effect here. And he says, Donald Trump says, the president-elect says, it was a result of talking during that hour-and-a-half meeting with the president that he decided he was going to reevaluate a few elements. And I think that's all to the good. The markets
also disarms the opposition.
Well, I think the opposition didn't come to this fight fully equipped, so I think that's all. I don't think we have to worry much about that. The markets, this we do have to focus. This looks like it may be the strongest one-week performance for the Dow in a Trump rally, following this Trump rally, following Tuesday's election. I mean, it's remarkable what we're watching here.
It is, but it also has to be followed through, and Trump made some noise about it during the campaign. Stop having the Federal Reserve hurting our credit markets so credit can start to flow again to small and new businesses.
You know, I love the
jobs.
ease with which you reach out to the Chinese and to begin to deal with them, and then you put your other arm around the Fed and say, Janet? I mean, this is, you know, I think that he's moving at an amazing rate of speed already, but I think you would move him up to the speed of light here if you had your way.
I think that's the way he wants to go anyway.
Well, we're sure going to find out.
Yeah.
And we do know one thing, rate of speed or otherwise, things are moving terrifically, and a great start.
If the Yankees can do the same thing, all will be well.
And there, Steve Forbes has put things right in the New York universe. Good to have you here, Steve.
Good to be with you.
Steve Forbes. In our online poll last night, we asked you, do you believe Speaker Ryan's betrayal of the Republican nominee should disqualify him from holding any leadership role? 65% of you said yes, it should. Well, my next guest endorsed Donald Trump for president back in January, and joining us tonight, the president of Liberty University, Jerry Falwell Jr. Great to have you with us. Let's get a quick reaction from you, Jerry, on how the president-elect is doing and moving his transition team and starting to populate his administration and cabinet.
He's not wasting any time. I had a long talk with him last night. I don't think he ever sleeps. Every time I call him, he's right there. But he's doing all the things that he promised. He's